Hi all, I'm Jack from Quilting Dreams. Today we're going to start block number 8 of our quilt along. So block number 8 is the 9 patch vertical heart block, and doesn't that look beautiful? So that's today's block that we're about to do. Today's tutorial will be lots of fun and I'm really looking forward to it. This week we did receive some photos from Marie Suzanne. Marie'd been away and she's caught up on a couple of blocks, so I'm just going to pop them up now and you can have a look at those. They absolutely look stunning. I love the way she's incorporated a jelly roll with her scraps, and she's really making such beautiful blocks. So I'm really excited about how that will turn out. If you'd like to share your blocks with us, please send them through to me at admin@quiltingdreams.com and I'll pop them in the next show. Next tutorial. We've got 3 tutorials left after this, and then we're going to start assembling those blocks. In the last week I've finished my craft, my new quilting storage space, so I'm just going to pop a photo of that up there as well. It still needs a little bit of work, but I've been able to pop all my quilting fabric up and I think it looks really lovely. So I'll share that with you as well. So let's go ahead and let's start block number 8, the 9 patch vertical heart block, and let's have some fun together. Let's get going. Okay, so what we will need for this block is we're going to be creating our 9 patch, and with that we'll need one 2.5 by 2.5 for the middle of the 9 patch, and then we're going to need 2 lots of 4 for the outside, so that we can create that, I guess, checkerboard effect. So I've picked light colours for my 9 patch, but if you wanted to do dark colours for your 9 patch and then lighter colours for the rest of the heart, or you want to do a mix and match so that it blends quite nicely, but I've decided to go something a little bit lighter in the middle, so then the heart on the outside, I can get that real good balance between the two. So you'll need 2 lots of 4 of the 2.5 by 2.5, and you'll need your centerpiece for our 9 patch. So I'll just pop those ones aside. And then for the rest of the heart, what you're going to need, the way that we're going to do this one is really quite cool. So we're going to need to get 14 inches by 2.5 inches. Now remembering our blocks after we do this are 13.5, so we will be cutting a little bit away, but I always like to go a little bit bigger and then cut down. So there's that one there, and then for that center part we'll need 2 at 4.5, and then we'll need 2 at 1.5 inches wide by 4.5 long. So these are 4.5 long by 2.5 wide, those 2 there. So that's for the top of the heart. And then for the bottom of the heart, we're going to need the same coordinating pieces, but these will all be 4 inches long. And then being that our heart in the middle is 6, so then that will give us the correct length that we're after. And we're going to subcut down anything that's a little bit excess anyway, so that will all be okay. So we've got these ones all here, and then we're just going to need our backing fabric. Now I was just asked recently in a comment, how much backing fabric do we need? And I had it written down from when I did the sample quilt, and I've somehow misplaced that, so I'm going to recalculate it and then I'll pop it back in the description. So what will we need? We'll need 2 squares at 7 inches by 7 inches. Now that's for the bottom of our heart. Then we're going to need 4. These ones are 3.25 by 3.25. So that's for the top of our heart. And then for our borders, we're going to need 2 at 13.5 and then 2 at 17.5. So that's what we're going to need for this block. I'm just going to put those border pieces aside, and we are going to, the other things that you're going to need is some pins, a rotary cutter to cut your fabric, Frixion pen so that we can mark on our fabric, and an assortment of rulers, and you can use any rulers that you like. I've got these ones, plus I'll grab a smaller one out when we do some marking. But these are my two go-to rulers that I have next to me all the time, and then I get the rulers off the board as I need them. So I'm just going to pop those ones aside for now, and the first thing we're going to do is using our Frixion pen, and I just grabbed that ruler. We are going to mark up, won't use that one, we need a bigger ruler. Okay, so we're just going to mark from corner to corner and mark these up. And we're going to do that on all 4 of them. Once we've done that, we're going to put them aside so that we've got them ready for when we use them. You can do this as soon as, like, when we get to that spot in the tutorial, or you can certainly do what I do. And I like to, after I've done my cutting, I just like to sit and mark up all the pieces that I need to mark up. If they're small, 1 1/4 inch, I probably wouldn't mark them. And I feel like I can eyeball those ones, but you can certainly sit there and mark those ones up. When I started sewing, I was definitely marking them up because I don't think I could do a straight line to save myself back then. But I feel like after many quilts later, those smaller ones, I feel like I don't need it anymore. But you know, every now and again, I'll still mark them up if I am not having a good day. So that's those ones. So they're all marked up, ready to go. So we're going to now pop those ones aside, and we're going to pull in to do our nine patch first. So we're just going to pop these ones in, just like this. And we're going to sew up this 9 patch. Now I'm not going to pin the 9 patch. These are 2.5 by 2.5, and I'm quietly happy just to sew these ones up, and then I'm going to square it up at the end. So what I'll do is I will match the first 2, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then before I go to the ironing board, I'll then add the other side on, and then I'll go and iron those up, and then we'll start joining the rows together. So we're going to do these pieces first, and then we'll come back. Now, over at the sewing machine today, I'm using a scant 1/4 inch foot. I find that gives me a better result when I'm sewing up these blocks. I have my stitch length on 1.3. That's a tight stitch, but I find that it gives me a much better result at the end. It is a little bit challenging if you have to unpick, but other than that, I really do like that stitch length. I'm using my Juke TL2010Q today. I love this machine. This is one of my favorite machines, and I'm so thankful that I discovered it on another YouTube channel. The thread I'm using is a Rassaunt thread. It is a go-to that I've been using for a long time with my Juke. I find that it works well, and I haven't really explored any other types of threads. You can see here on the side that I've got my 9 patch, and I have that laid out in the position that I'm going to be sewing. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to piece these together, and I'm going to come back to you. Need to switch that on for the day. There we go. Okay, that's our first one. And I'm going to come back when I've got them all all the rows pieced together. Okay, so at the ironing table, what we want to think about is that we're going to nest these seams. So we want to make sure we either we have the outside ones facing in the same way and the inside one in the opposite direction. So for today's 9 patch, we're going to do the inside facing out and the 2 outside ones facing in. So I'm going to go ahead now and iron these ones. Now, because they're small, I tend not to set the seams as often, and I just tend to go ahead and stitch, and iron. I'm not quite sure where I got that from. Okay, and then, so that one's going in, so we just want to make sure that we do this one out. And then we're going to do the next one in. So now we are ready to pin our rows together. So let's go ahead and start that now. Okay, so now we're going to piece these rows together. So we're going to piece the top one to the middle. We're going to look at, feel those seams. So we'll bring it up to the edge. And we're going to feel that seam. Now, if it's sitting on top of each other, you'll feel that it's quite bulky. If it's nested, you'll feel that it's actually just connected in there quite well. And when that's connected in, we'll pop a pin in so we know where we're going. And then we're going to do the other side. You can also feel if there's a gap as well. So you just want to make sure that you get that lovely nesting. Now, at this point, you can pop a pin in each end, and that will make sure that that stays square and doesn't come unsquare while you're stitching. You don't have to do that, but that's definitely an option for you to do. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to stitch this, add on the next row, iron it up, and then that's our 9 patch complete. So it's a nice and easy block. It's really one that I quite enjoy doing, and I thought that it was quite fitting to fit inside this heart. Now, one thing you will notice is that I pin back from that edge. The reason I do that is so that I can stitch straight down, knowing that my pins aren't going to get into the foot, and that I can then just take those pins out at the end. So let's go ahead and we're going to stitch all of these together. Okay, so what we want to do now is just check that our block is 6.5 by 6.5. So we're just going to grab our ruler and our rotary cutter, and we are going to, I'm just going to line that up a little bit. I find it easier if I use the grid lines, and just lining that up, and I tend to use the ruler lines to line up with my rows. And that's nice. And then just trim off any excess we might have. And there is a little bit of excess there. So it's always well worth it, because all of those little bits and pieces do add up at the end, and they can sometimes cause you to have a quilt that's a little bit wavy when you go to do your long arm quilting, or you're quilting on your domestic machine at home. You definitely want to, just as often as you can, make sure you have that nice and square. Now that was my Laura Star iron just having a moment there, and just that one there, that's nice. There's definitely not much on this one here to take off. There's just a little smidgen on that one, and let's just check this next one. Okay, there we are. So just a little bit there, we'll pop that in the bin. And there is our 9 patch ready. So that's the middle part of our block. The middle part of our block. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get the pieces here to create the Okay, so this is the first bit that we're going to pull together. So these ones is going across the top. We're going to stitch these down. This is the middle of our heart that we're looking at here. So we're going to join the right sides together, and you can pin or you can just pop these on. They're small enough that you can go from edge to edge without them getting out of sync, and generally nothing's going to get, you know, it'll just work beautifully. It's when you get longer ones you find that when you're finished, if you don't pin them, one is definitely longer than the other, yet you started with the same length at the start. So we'll just do that with that one, and then the same on this one as well. And then we're going to go ahead and we will stitch these together. What we're also going to do while we're over there is we're going to do the same thing, right sides together, and we're going to pin at each end. And we're going to sew these together. This is going to help to form the middle part of the block, from the top to the bottom of our 9 patch. So I'm going to go ahead, finish this pinning, sew it up, iron it, and I'm going to come back to you with the next steps. Right, so now we have our 2, this is the top inside of that heart. So what we want to do is grab 2 of our 3¼ inch squares, and we're going to place them at the top in the corner here. So we're just going to pop those directly in there. Now you don't have to pin these if you would prefer not to, but I'm just going to pop some pins in for today. We're going to pop these pins in, and we'll do the same one over here. Pop the pin in. Now we're going to go ahead and sew these, and then once we've sewn them, we're going to actually trim off the excess. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, sew them, and then I'm going to trim off the excess. So I'm going to put the 1/4 inch on this marked line where it's going to be stitched, and then I'm going to trim off the excess on this side. I'm then going to go and iron it. I'm going to iron one to the inside and one to the outside, so that way when we're joining these 2 together, I can nest those seams in the middle. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so now we have those, this is the inside, so we're now going to join those 2 pieces together, and because we have ironed one way and one the other, we can nest that seam in the middle there. We're going to nest that seam in the middle, and we're going to pop a pin in there. Then you can go ahead and pop a pin at either end if you like, or you can just sew them. It's a fairly short piece, so I think you can certainly keep it nice and square. So we're going to do that. Now while we're there on this one, we're actually going to pop these ones together as well. So we're going to put right sides together. So this is the bottom and this is our 9 patch. So we're just going to join these up. So join them in, match that nicely, right sides together, pop a pin in there, and then we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. So right sides together, feel that nice connection. You'll feel that connect lovely in there. And then you can go ahead and pop one on either side if you like. So we're going to finish popping the middle part together of our heart, and this is the bottom part, and we're doing that central part of the heart. So we're going to go ahead and we'll stitch those ones up now. Okay, so we are getting this one put together quite quickly. What we need to do now is put right sides together of the top of our heart with the 9 patch, and we're just going to put these ones together. And just pop them there. Then what I'm going to do while we're there sewing this one on, we're going to start on those sides. So we're going to stitch our sides together. So we've got the 2 strips here, and we're going to right sides together, pin at each end, and then in the middle. That way we know that we're going to have them nice and square at the end when we've stitched them, and they're not going to become one a bit longer or one a bit shorter. So I'm going to go ahead and finish pinning these. We're going to sew them up, iron them, and then I'm going to meet you back here to put the next pieces together. Okay, so now we have that middle block finished. What we want to do now though is make sure that we've got it 6.5 by 14 at this stage. So what we're going to do is go ahead and we're going to just trim off that excess, because it will impact the block in the end if we don't do that. So if we're looking at the block, we know that that middle part, because we've already done that squaring up, we know that that is definitely 6.5. So I'm using that as my guide, and I'm just trimming off the excess. Sorry, half did the job there. Trim off that excess, and then we're just going to turn that block around using the ruler as our guide, and knowing that we've already squared up that middle part, we're now going to just trim off the excess from the other side. Now the other thing you'll notice is that our block measures past the 14 inches. So at this stage what I'm going to get you to do is to just we'll just pop that on there. We'll use that, we've straightened that up, use those guides. And we're just going to trim off anything that is over what we need. So there's just a bit here at this stage, and that's okay. We'll just trim that little bit off. And now we know we've got the 14 by 6.5. So we can go ahead now and put our side strips on. So there's our first one, and there's our second one, and they should measure up nicely. So what I'm going to get you to do is do right sides together, and we're going to go ahead and pop these side ones on. Okay, so we've now joined our two side pieces on. So at this point it's too wide. What we want to do is be able to cut that down. So what I'm going to do, we want it 13.5 by 14 at this stage, because we'll trim off the top in a moment. So what we're going to do, we know my ruler is 6.5. And it needs to be, because we need 13.5, I need to take that over. So I'm going to use the grid lines on my cutting mat to help me with this one. And so I've used we've got the middle there, we've got 6.5, plus I've added 1/4 of an inch there. And I'm just going to take off that excess that we've got. Trim that one away, and then I'm just going to turn it around, and we're going to do the same on here. So I'm going to line it up again. And take off that little bit there. So you are going to take a little bit off on both sides there. So now if we measure this one up, we've got our 13.5. So that's just perfect. So we're just going to go ahead and put the extra bits on here to form our heart. So we're going to pop one in this top corner, another one in this corner, and then we're going to put the first one down the bottom. So we're going to put our first one. We're not going to put both on at this stage. We're just going to put one. And let's square that one up. I'm going to go ahead and pin these. So trim off the excess iron, and I'm going to come back. Okay, so now we have all of these ones on, and isn't it starting to look quite fabulous? We're now going to just add this last one on, and we're going to bring that down there nicely. Make sure we match up this at the bottom. If you don't, it's very hard to get that 1/4 inch at the bottom, so really good idea just to pop that one in nicely, pin in the top, pin in the bottom, and then we're going to go ahead and sew, trim and iron, and come back to pop those borders on. Okay, so we know that the width is 13.5 because we've already measured that and done that trimming. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do some trimming in the length, because we remember we had that at 14. So what we want to do is we're going to line that up with the bottom there. That's quite good there. And then we're just going to go ahead and we're going to trim off the excess from the top. Don't trim it from the bottom, or we're going to cut off the bottom of that heart. And look, we don't want to do that, not after all the lovely effort that we've popped in. And let's pop that across there, and we're just going to take off that excess. So this will have the block at 13.5 by 13.5. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to pop the borders on, and I'm going to come back and show you the finished block. And just like that, we have finished block number 8. Thank you so very much for joining me. Today's block is the 9-patch vertical heart block. And doesn't that look beautiful? I love how that's turned out. I love the fact that we can integrate any sort of block in with our heart blocks, and it just turns out so sweet. Thank you very much for joining me in today's tutorial. If you would like to share your finished blocks or finished couple of blocks with the rest of the group, please send them through to admin@quiltingdreams.com.au, and I'll be sure to show them on the next video that we put on, which is next week, and that will be block number 9. So we've got 3 blocks left in this quilt along, and I'm currently in the process of designing the next quilt along, and of course it will definitely include hearts because that's my favourite. Thank you very much for joining me today. Until next time, keep crafting. Thank you. Bye.